If it was so perfect, would we be doing it again is my question.
Come on, you're the face, I'm the sidekick. That's how this works. I'm the short one, sidekick.
Welcome to Chalice Farms TV. My name is Penn Lewis.
And I'm Kiki Sherrod.
And we're here today to show you some of the inside practices behind the best cannabis producers in the state of Oregon. We're here to show you some of the things that happen behind the scenes to create and cultivate craft cannabis products.
Yes!
Hey everybody, welcome to Chalice Farms TV. My name is Penn.
And I'm Kiki.
And we're here today with one of our favorite interviewees we've had thus far, Leather, his mother Fran as well, and last but not least, we are here with Congressman Earl Blumenauer. Thank you guys so much for sitting down with us. We're so excited to have a conversation. And I think we just kind of tee it off with, what is everyone's experience with cannabis and kind of how has that dovetailed with your career, your profession as you guys have kind of gone through that?
My mom was having some blood problems, and I said, well, let me give you some CBD stuff. She said, I don't want that snake oil. Having been mostly a Western medicine kind of RX lady. And then it got to the point where you said, I'll try it. And you did, and it worked. And of course, as soon as that happened to you, there was a little bit of a eureka, where you were like, why aren't people talking about this? Why isn't there research about this? What's going on?
So Fran, part of Western medicine for how many years, would you say?
I still am considered.
You are.
Hey, still part of Western medicine. And,
Very much so. Really severe bone pain from a drug I was taking because I have a blood disorder called myeloid dysplasia. Leather suggested that I try using CBD. So this drug I only took every other night. So there was a kind of a nice built-in control. And as long as I took the drug before I went to bed as tea and crackers or a piece of candy and up to 100 milligrams, I was pain-free.
And Earl, you've had an illustrious career, of course. And when did cannabis kind of enter the scene for you? When did it become an issue that you felt like kind of picking up the torch on?
It isn't highly addictive, and people have used cannabis for medicinal purposes for millennia. So we were involved with that in the 73 session. Oregon was the very first state to decriminalize marijuana. I was a believer. The evidence made sense to me. It did not make sense to me to criminalize behavior that is not really that much of a risk to individuals or to society. Mm-hmm. This is not one that needed to be singled out for special treatment. We now have 47 states where some form of cannabis is legal. And it's ushering in a new era.
Speaking to some of the stuff that Fran does, it's not just about cannabis flower, it's also about cannabis research. And there are beneficial cannabinoids, not just THC, that can help children and other people, but there's no research on it. So, when you say keep it out of the hands of children, it's like, yes, children do not need to smoke weed. No, they do not. But there are minor cannabinoids like CBD that's non-intoxicating that could be beneficial.
Talking to some scientists, neurologists, who described to me how they have infants with extreme seizure disorders. And the only thing that worked was the application of a low-grade CBD, and it stopped the seizures.
Well, that was the first approved drug by the FDA, was CBD for seizures in children.
I'm absolutely convinced if we reach the point where we're able to do the research and have the broader acceptance, the medicinal applications for medical marijuana are very broad, that can result in better treatment options for more people at a fraction of the cost of conventional drug therapies and with much less risk. And again, it's part of this notion of demystifying being able to use responsibly, being able to, in some cases, monetize it. I mean, we grow in Oregon, at least by reputation, some of the finest cannabis in the world.
You can't say that almost anywhere else. So we have something here that is really kind of our state's resource. And, we haven't been allowed to use it other than in our own state.
Now, the industry is being taxed.
Part of the taxation conundrum is that because of a provision in federal law, which made it illegal to fully deduct their business expenses. So people who are involved in this enterprise pay an effective tax rate that's 2, 3, or 4 times higher than regular businesses that aren't cannabis. Eliminate this provision, the 280E, tax them like regular enterprises. I actually think there will be more money that is collected because there's an incentive to follow the rules. It's not punitive, and it'll help them grow and invest. And this is another area that we're working on with legislation, and that'll happen when we become legal federally. And here in Oregon, because the way we set it up, the benefits of the taxation go to education, go to law enforcement, go to drug treatment. So there's multiple beneficiaries of money that otherwise would have been lost with the black market. I think there would still be some use of cannabis, but it wouldn't be taxed and the benefits wouldn't be shared.
What can you do nationally, or what can Oregon do locally about this cash-only problem and inability to use banks?
Well, ideally, we should have federal legislation that makes clear that people who are playing by the rules ought to be able to have access to banking services.
Right.
I have been working in this area for a long time. We have legislation, it's called the SAFE Act, that would make clear that cannabis industry has access to banking. But if you're thinking about this rationally, what's the consequence of not having access to banking services? If you care about money laundering,
right?
If you care about tax evasion or theft, we need to change it. The public understands it, but it's been part of that inertia. But that's maybe the very first domino that falls. And if you want to thrive, you need to be able to bank. We've got to let people understand. We have to educate. We have to regulate and protect.
So, Earl, obviously operating in a state like Oregon, we're very used to the conversation surrounding cannabis, but this is clearly not where you do a lot of your work. So how, when you go to a place like Washington, D.C., how does the dialogue, how does the kind of tenor around the issue that is cannabis, how does that change?
I'm finding that increasingly, this is part of a mainstream conversation. In Washington, D.C., we've tried to make it a little easier. We've created an informal cannabis caucus. It's an opportunity for people to who are members of Congress to work together on legislative initiatives. We're watching the shift take place where people understand that this is an issue whose time has come. There's broader awareness. The public is 3 steps ahead of the federal government. I find it encouraging, and that's one of the reasons why I think next 3 years, we're just going to be able to finally get the policies right, not criminalize adult behavior, unlock the industry, protect people, and help those who have been damaged by it.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining us for this amazing Chalice TV episode. We had an incredibly informational and educational discussion with some of the most intriguing and amazing people that are really kind of carrying the torch. So thank you for everything that you've done, Earl. Thank you guys for being willing to sit down and have, just a real dialogue. And I think that's where it starts. So we really appreciate everybody here.
Yes.